Once you get clear about what you want, what your vision is, what you're after, the goal, what's important to you, then you need to have a conversation about courage. You see, there's a lot of confusion out there about courage. I was at an event recently and there was a guy training all these different athletes and he was saying, no fear, no fear, no fear. And in the back of my mind, I kept thinking to myself, well then no courage, no courage, no courage. The thing we don't know about courage, and we don't talk enough about courage, is that fear is a part of the deal. Every person who we've deemed courageous throughout history has been afraid. Fearlessness is not courage. It doesn't take any courage for me to wash the dishes. It doesn't take any courage for me to do the laundry. Why? Because I'm not afraid of those things. I just do them. And if you play in this game doesn't require any fear, then we're not talking about courage. That's fine. You're ready, go for it. But for those of us who are experiencing anxiety, for those of us who have a little bit of fear, recognize that every courageous person that you've ever looked up to was also afraid. They just found a way to rise above their fear. They just found a way to see fear, to welcome it, and to tell it to get in the back seat. The greatest challenge any of us face isn't the opponent lined up across from us. It isn't the other team, the other players, the conditions of the game. No, the greatest challenge you face is your own mind, our thoughts about what we're up against and how we'll show up. If you want to win the game today and give it your all, then you have to win the battle against your mind. We hold an inner monologue with ourselves. Anywhere between 200, and this is crazy, 4,000 words a minute. We have a monologue going on, a conversation. So what is that conversation? Well, it's nothing new. It's judgments, it's fears, it's critics. Maybe it's what happened the last time you found yourself in this place. But what if you could take hold of that conversation? What if you had a choice as to what you allowed to be said in that space? Your brain is wired to pay extra attention to perceived threats, whether imaginary or real. At its most basic level, the brain is programmed for your survival. And so if you're feeling anxious, it's going to pay extra attention to that anxiety. If you're feeling afraid or uncertain, your brain is going to perk up and attune itself to those fears, anxieties, and uncertainties. Your task, your invitation today is to recognize the fear, welcome it, but tell it to get in the back seat. To see that it's here and recognize that, yeah, you're here because this is an important moment. But then tell fear, you're sitting in the back and I am driving. I was talking with a player this week. He was saying that he had a good week of practice, a better week than he's had all of camp. And I asked him, I said, what was the difference? Was it coaching? Was it technique? Or was it a decision? It didn't take him a second to respond. He said it was a decision. To be honest with you, I've been playing afraid this whole time, and I just decided this week, I'm gonna go for it. What do I have to lose? I'm still afraid, but I'm just gonna play harder. I'm just gonna decide to play harder. The way most people talk about fear gives it too much power. You conquer fear, you overcome it. It's something you fight against, it's something that holds you back. But if fear is just a story, then you always have a choice to believe whether it's true or not. You have the power to project yourself into a fearful story, or you can decide to project yourself into a different one. It's entirely up to you which story is worth believing. Nearly every spiritual tradition has some form of be not afraid, of take courage, of do not be timid. In fact, if you were to add up all of the commandments of all the charges that Scripture has and put them in a pile, the largest pile, by far, the most commanded commandment throughout all of Scripture is some form of take courage. There's an old Buddhist proverb about a guy who's afraid and his fear is manifest and is chasing him. So he runs through a field, the fear is right on his tail. He runs up a mountain, fear is right behind him. He runs over the mountain and around the corner and through a cave, fear's right there. And finally he comes to the edge of this cliff and he's either got to jump off the cliff or he's got to turn and face his fears. What he chooses to do is turn and he faces his fear. And the minute he faces his fear, he recognized that his fear wasn't anything to be afraid of, but his fear changes and turns into a friend and says, I'm here because this moment is important. I'm here because this moment is bigger than you. I'm here to help you recognize just how significant this moment is. And the fear turns and gets behind him and says, how can I help? Some people measure time in minutes. others in hours or years. I like to measure time in moments, because some moments are bigger than others. This moment is one you've been preparing for. This moment is one that is worth all the work, all the workouts, all the early mornings, all the practices and staying after practice, the runs, the diet. When other people were staying up, you were going to bed. When other people were still in bed, you were getting up. All of that has led to this moment. And so, of course, you are experiencing some anxiety. Of course, you're a little bit afraid. It just means that this moment is important. And so what do? You remember your vision. You remember why you're here. You welcome your fear, you invite it to sit down, and then you say, get in the back seat. In order for this to be a courageous moment, you have to be here. I recognize that. But you're not driving, I am. My vision, my commitment, the impact I'm choosing to make on this moment, that's what's going to inform where we go. They gave you a schedule, didn't they? I want you to pull that out right now. Take a look at it. What's it say? All right, wake up call. Then breakfast. All right, keep going. Walk through. All right, now we're getting, trip to the stadium. Put on your stuff, warm-ups, individuals, team. I want you to visualize yourself in each of these scenarios. See yourself, visualize yourself at each moment. Now I want you to do me a favor. See yourself in each of those same moments without listening to fear. Imagine yourself fully engaged, fully present, not listening to your fears, but living for your vision. How do we do this? How do we embrace our fears and move past them? How do we get to a place where we say, yeah, I'm afraid, but I'm going to choose to do something differently? First step, just take a breath. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Secondly, I invite you to just acknowledge the fact that, you know what, you're a bit anxious, you're a bit afraid. But then I'm not going to let what may or may not happen keep me from being true to what I've already done, all the work I've already put in, all of the time I've already spent to be ready for this moment. And so I'm going to go for it. Imagine the person who you look up to. How would they act in this moment? Do that. Do what they would do. Put yourself in their shoes and just do how they would do. In your mind's eye, what your hero would do, the decisions he or she would make, the way that he or she would approach this, do that. Especially if you're uncertain as to how you're supposed to be. Just mimic those that have gone before you. Imagine what it would be like to live unafraid and do that thing. Fear is a powerful act of imagination. It's powerful because it confuses us, it paralyzes us, it overwhelms us, it provokes us, it intimidates us. But if you remember that fear is just a story, then you can use your imagination to project yourself into a different story, into a truer story, into one that is aligned with your vision, is aligned with your commitments, is aligned with what it is that you're here for. If you go to a shrink, if you go to a spiritual director, if you go to a life coach, one of the first things they're going to ask you is, what do you want? Why are you here? And if you can't answer that question, if you don't know the answer to what it is that you're after, then fear is going to play a bigger role than it needs to. But if you're clear about why, if you know what is driving you, the greater cause, the greater vision, the greater purpose, then you have something to point to, something to reach out for, something to show allegiance to greater than your fear. And so first, get clear. You see, the greatest challenge many of us face isn't the opponent lined up across from us. It's not the other team. It's not the other players. It's not the conditions of the game. No, the greatest challenge any of us in the room face is the challenge in our head and in our heart. It's our own fears. It's our thoughts. The good news about the greatest challenge that you're going to face today, being your own mind, is that the most control you have over anything is the control you have over yourself. We can't always control what happens in and around our lives, but we can control three things: what we focus on, what it means, and what we're going to do about it. You know, what's interesting about this moment is they don't give jerseys to just anybody. They didn't let just anybody come into this locker room. They don't let everybody just take that field. No, you were invited. In fact, you're supposed to be here. And so if your fears are telling you that someone else is better, that someone else is supposed to do it, don't listen to it. You're supposed to be here. Act like you're invited, because you are. The fact that you're afraid means you're doing something significant. The fact that there's anxiety, your heart is beating, your palms are sweaty, you're not sure what's going to happen, means that you're doing something worth doing. With this moment that you've been preparing for, with all those other moments, what are you going to do? Courage is an ability to do that which frightens you, to be afraid, but to choose to do the thing anyway, to show fidelity to the cause anyway, to step out anyway. Get clear, take courage, raise your standards, be what's required, do what's required, commit yourself, focus, be relentless, be powerful, empower others, take feedback, take responsibility, choose to grow, stay hungry, stay the course, take care of yourself, finish, be present, be grateful, be kind. Show up just how you've prepared to show up, because you're ready. You've done the work, you've put in the time, you know what to do. Again, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the presence of something greater. Take courage by recognizing that thing that you're after and saying, you know what? This is more important to me than what might happen to me. This is more important to me than me screwing up. This is more important to me than whatever this fear is telling me. You've dedicated yourself to this moment, and now that it's here, don't shy away. Step up. Be true to yourself. Be true to all of the work that you've put in. And take courage.